This is something very special that just came in today. 1970 Dodge Challenger. Yes, another build. This is going to be Kowalski number 2 in my shop. I'm in my engine room working on this 440 Max Wedge to install this cross ram Max Wedge intake manifold.
Welcome back to Nick's Garage. The automotive transformations that take place in Nick's shop don't happen magically by themselves in the middle of the night. It takes a lot of hard work and passion to turn the hands of time back for these classic American muscle cars. And most of all, it takes a man like Nick to tie it all together.
Hi, I'm Nick and welcome to my shop. I've got something very different today. I've built a lot of 440s and I've been playing with a lot of different intake manifolds, 6-packs and dual quads. But here I got something special that I want to share with my viewers. I've got a 426 wedge engine, but then again, we don't have any 426 wedge blocks, so we're using a 440 wedge block, which is also an RB, just like a 426. You know, so don't look at the decals, you guys. I know 426. This is the cubic inch that existed on the Max Wedge. It was not a 440, but we do not have a 426 wedge block, which is also an RB, just like a 440. So what Jim decided to use a 440. Nothing wrong with that. It's bored 30 over, which equals 446 cubic inches, what we got here. But what we got here is nostalgia. It is what it is. From the outside, it looks all the same. So this is what you have, a 426 Max Wedge, and you can call it what you want, but the internals are 446. What I've got here is a Max Wedge intake manifold. It's got 2 carburetors on the other end. This was used in 1964 for racing, but you know, Jim's building a street cruiser, so something very simple. You know, I've worked with so many different engines in my life, and I've worked with dual quads, 6-packs, and 4 barrels, all different configurations. But this dual quad setup on a cross ram, I never had a client or even worked on a car in my 52 years experience. You know, I did work on once a 69 Camaro with a cross ram, which a guy came in, he had a 4 barrel in the engine compartment, on the engine, and he told me to open the trunk and he had a cross ram dual quad intake manifold. Yes, I did install it on that car. That was a while back, maybe 25 years ago. And here I am today with a Mopar Max Wedge big block to install a cross ram. And what's unique about it is we're going to put this on the dynamometer, and I don't know, we're looking for 550 horsepower, and I believe we're going to make a little bit more than that, but maybe more than that. We got a big hydraulic flat tapping camshaft, not too crazy. We got adjustable rockers, and of course 440 cubic inches, 30 overbore. And let's see how it goes. This is the only intake that I've worked with that takes the bolts that go right through the intake manifold to bolt it on, to squeeze the intake gasket onto the cylinder head. So I'm going to put it on in a little while. I just want to show you we have to use special Allen bolts like so to go through the intake manifold. And you know, going through it, you don't want to lose a bolt because then it's going to get sucked into the intake runner and then who knows what's going to happen. So we're going to go very slowly. This is very special. And then again, putting this on took some special heads because when you have a Max Wedge, the intake ports on the cylinder heads are much taller than any 440 engine. For example, let me just show you something here, like a 413, 440 cast iron head. There's one right here I want to show you guys. If you take a look, it's a very short intake runner. Now, the Max Wedge, the cast iron heads that came from Chrysler back in 60s, early 60s, was a much taller intake port on the cylinder head. But since we don't have those cylinder heads, we got a set of Trick Flow 270 intake runner cylinder heads from Trick Flow, which is exactly what it was designed for with the Max Wedge intake manifold. And we also had to make our own special plate, which we bought from Trick Flow. Then we had to make our special gasket to form it in place, because what comes from the factory is a simple intake baffle gasket like so. But in this case, I couldn't find one that fitted perfect. So we got the paper gasket. I stuck it on lightly so it could stay in place so we can bolt on the intake manifold. This is replacing the thin valley pan gasket I got here, which is on a 33440. So, this took some while. We had to make some paper gasket right here to compress it. So we want to make sure we have no oil leaks. This is where the lifters are underneath. I've got the intake gasket in place, and these are much larger intake ports and also raised, just like the intake manifold. So right now I'm just about to take the intake manifold, bolt it on, and it is the first time I've done this before. I've never done this before, so I'm gonna be surprised how it's gonna fit. So let's give it a shot, because you know you gotta make sure you have a perfect fit, and we have no vacuum leaks whatsoever. And we have to know which is the front and back on this. So as we know, this is the coil bracket that's gonna go here. This is the boss for the gas pedal bracket. I made sure that there's nothing inside this intake manifold. So right now I'm gonna pick it up. It's pretty heavy. It's made out of aluminum. I'm gonna place it on here. Then we're gonna bolt it on slowly. This is like a tunnel ram. You know, like you got the runners going directly to the intake ports. This is completely different. You know, some tunnel rams, when they went racing, they had them straight up with the 2.4 barrels. But they wanted to make something that went underneath the hood, shut the hood on a car. So what they decided, they did the ram sideways. And it's a pretty good design. It's for racing purposes only, I guess. And what really, really freaks me out is the only way we can get the bolts to go through the intake manifold is it have to be opened up like so. There's 3 per side. Then there's 1 external here, 1 external there, which you can see right here. And we're gonna have to put 4 bolts on each side to bolt it down, compress the gasket, and make sure we have no vacuum leaks. So I've never done this before. I'm gonna do this right now on this Max Wedge. Yeah, this is something very unique. Very unique. And it's pretty heavy. It's made out of aluminum. And you know, I've never ran one of these on my dynamometer, never have. I gotta try it. And this is something completely different for me. I'm gonna have to hook up the linkage. I also made a different contraction to put 2 plates here with a chain to lift it, because we don't have a 4-bar plate in the middle. So we're gonna have 2 of them, which when the time comes to be on the dynamometer, you guys will see it. Anyways, for now, I just wanna install it, bolt it down, so you viewers can see what it takes to bolt on a Max Wedge intake on a wedge engine. Okay, here we go. Okay. Well, it maybe weighs about 20 pounds or so. Not much. It's made out of aluminum. Okay. All right, let's get started. Here we go. You know what? I'll work with the outside bolts. Let's start with this one. You know what? This is totally different. This is not good. Going in too tight. I think I need some washers on this. I'll use them as a guide for now. Okay, now let's go inwards. Here we go. We have to go through the intake manifold. Oh, we lost it. Okay, let's take it out. Here we go. And the only purpose the openings are in the intake manifold is to get into the bolt, go to the intake manifold, the base of the intake manifold, so you could bolt it to the cylinder head. The only opening is 1 on this side, on the outside, and 1 in the rear on the other side. And the other 3 per side have to go through the intake manifold like so. Okay, let me tighten it a couple of turns. You know, I like to put all the bolts on first, slight turns on each one, like so. Now I'm going to go on the opposite end, on this side, and put another bolt on the inside. As you can see, these bolts have no washers whatsoever. So here we go. And slowly but surely, let's open lines up. Like so. Here we go. Nice. Okay. There we go. Let's go. 4 more to go. Actually, I'm going to put this one right here. Okay, now let's go through another one. This is very strange. First, going through intake manifold to put intake bolts on. This is something really strange. Okay, let's go for another one. Here we go. Yeah. Well, you know what? We'll use the magnet to put it into its place. Like so. There we go. Let's make a few more turns on this one. There we go. Okay. And there's one more. Which one did we miss? Okay, here we go. And there it is. So we got all 6 bolts in place, except for the, I'm going to take this one out. I'm going to take this one out and I'm going to put some flat hardened washers. Okay, let's start from the middle. Start tightening it down. And then, you know, if you leave it like this without putting the caps back on, which are very unique to this intake manifold, are right here. You got 6 plugs with a gasket, which we're going to install after. So let's finish tightening the intake manifold. Then after that, we could put our caps, because if you don't put these caps back on, we're going to have a major vacuum leak. And for that reason, it will not start. This is fun. A Max Wedge. Wow. And they seem to be going in very good. You know, you got to make sure it compresses that gasket, you know, because we don't want a vacuum leak. And you know, I have to say, you know, I've always said this before, that Chrysler always had some crazy ideas on their engine builds and looking for performance, different carburation, different intake manifolds, different engines. You know, you got to give them some credit, but look at this idea right here. This is something different. Anyways, you know what? This is back in the early 60s. This is what they had. You know, these are the days, this is what they were thinking of, maybe turbocharging or supercharging, but instead they had this fancy looking intake manifolds with cross rams, Max Wedge and whatever. But you know what, it did work. It did work, you gotta admit. We're talking about old school here, you guys. So I'm just going to remove the outer bolts because I like to put a hardened washer in place, like so. There we go, that's much better. Okay, let me try to make sure these are all nice and tight. You sure don't want a vacuum leak. This is very strange. I'm going through a ratchet. I'm going with a ratchet through the intake manifold. Never done this before. Okay. This is something. That was totally different. Okay, they're all tight. Then we're going to put the caps on. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Yeah, you know, this is pretty unique. There we go. We finally got it bolted on. And now let's put the caps on. Here they are. I guess you use a 1/2-inch ratchet on this. So this goes right here. This is the finishing touch right here. So I'm going to put them all in. Like so. And you know, they're so nicely painted. I'm going to put a rag with a ratchet, make sure I don't scratch the paint. After all, Jim did a beautiful job for painting it, so let's keep it clean. You know, of course, I must have went through a lot of work on this. This was made for drag racing, not NASCAR, drag racing. And on NASCAR was something else. NASCAR, they only ran 4 barrels. Smarty. Chrysler designed the plug to fit the 1/2-inch ratchet, like so. And the last one. And after that, we'll tighten them down. Then I'm just going to put the carburetors on temporarily so you guys can see the final look. You know what? I can't wait to see this on the dynamometer. Never done one, but it sure would be great to see. I'm just going to put a rag over it, try not to scratch the paint, see if it works. Like so. You know, I always love the challenge in my life. When something new comes in the shop, I'd love to challenge it. And like, for example, like this one here, it's totally different. It is a Mopar. It is a Max Wedge. Never done one before, but you know what? It's pretty interesting. And I'll challenge it to any time to build it. Okay? So now, I've noticed that the paintwork, some spots were missed out. So what I'm going to do is, since I've got an extra can of paint, and it's called Raised Hemi Orange, made by Motor Coder, and I'm just going to open up the can and make a few touch-ups like so. Shake the can, got myself a paintbrush. This is a beautiful color, you guys. Check it out. This is a beautiful color. I'm going to remove the gasket. So okay, get the corners painted, like so. Take these out. Take the paint. And here we go. You know, you want it to look good. I know Jim was trying to get his best to get it painted, so he did a great job. So maybe tag along and do the same. And then we got to paint those 2 bolts on the end. We're going to paint this. The reason why we're painting the bolts and everything, because the engines were painted completely with the bolts and the intake were all on. So I want to do the same thing, the way it came from the factory. So I'm going to paint this bolt 1 coat, give it a coat later on, when it dries up, so I can make it look like a factory look. I want to paint the gasket here that sticks out a little bit, like so. Man, it's going to look super nice, super nice. Now that the intake manifold is in place, I can see what's going on. And I'm sure for you guys, I've never seen a Max Wedge before. I'm going to install the 2 carburetors temporarily You guys can see what it looks like when it's done. We have 2 carders that are going to go on to this. And let's get our carburetors. Here we go. And they're the same numbers, so any carburetor can go anywhere, like so. And here's the other one. I believe this goes here with the linkage. You guys can tell that when it has a linkage like this, it's for the linkage over here. And there you have it. 440 Max Wedge. Now, just got to do a little bit of waiting time. I want my client to be in the town when I put this on a dynamometer. But in the meantime, what I got to do is get this ready. I've got 2 plates to put on. I made a custom-made chain to pull it up so I can have it delivered into the dining room. But in the meantime, I'll stand by, wait for our client to come in, which is in a couple of weeks. We will make a video on this for all our viewers to see it. And in the meantime, here it is. It's ready to head for the dining room. And check out this wedding cake, you guys, with all the stuff on. Get some candles, light them up, blow them out, and off to the dyno. You know, the 6-pack is awesome. The dual quad inline Hemi is awesome. And this is another world. And you know what? There's more to come in the future with something else. But in the meantime, this is very special. Crosser and Max Wedge for drag racing. And thanks for spending time here with me in my engine room, putting on the intake manifold to the 440 Max Wedge.
The Max Wedge dual quad is a racing icon from the glory days of Mopar. And there's another Mopar icon in the shop this week. One with its own history of racing. This 1970 Dodge Challenger just arrived at Nick's, sent from the other side of the continent by an owner who wants to build a tribute to a legend.
You know, the past few years, I built a Kowalski Challenger in 1970, one of my favorite cars. So this other gentleman named Dan, near San Francisco, just in the state of California, brought me this Challenger to turn into a Kowalski Challenger in 1970. So it just came in today. I haven't looked at it yet very well. It just came in, and he wants me to turn it into a Kowalski Challenger with a 440 engine. So let's take a quick look. It looks like it's might be an original paint job. Didn't look at it very good yet. It used to be a race car. It used to have a Hemi inside it, but it is an N-code real 383 Magnum Challenger. Right now, it's got a 440 sitting in there temporarily. So it's here for a partial restoration, like not an rotisserie, put the interior back in, do the engine bay, paint the car white, make it drivable, of course, do the transmission, build a nice 440, and put the car to be presented. And the most important thing is to make it Alpine white. And this is a beautiful candidate for it because it's a solid car from what I see. It's got tinted windows that had air conditioning from the factory. And it's got the, I believe it's got front disc brakes. I didn't look at it yet. But anyways, it's got power steering, power brakes. It's going to be a perfect car with a black interior, bucket seats. But this one is going to be left with an automatic the way it came from the factory. And it's a beautiful car. I believe the vinyl top is coming off. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to talk to my client. I just got it today. I didn't look at it yet. I know he's got a list with the car. So how far I'm going to go with it, I do not know. So, but in the meantime, I just wanted to show you guys what came into my shop. Another 1970 Challenger. And this is going to be a great project. Oh yeah, this is going to be fun. After all, Challenger, it's kind of my kind of car. This hood, I believe, did not come with this car because this looks like a late model hood. You can tell by the latch that has a pull handle on it. That's not original in 1970. And it's got the wrong front hood molding. So we know this is not the original hood. Maybe the hood that came with the car, they opened it up, put a big scoop. Of course, this car used to be a drag car. So I'm sure the original hood is gone. But the most important thing is we're going to fix the hood if we can. Put the scoops that are very difficult to find or very expensive. And of course, we're going to sandblast it on the hood only. The car will not be rotisserie restored. We're going to be a nice, clean driver when it's done. We're not going to go with the bumblebee stripe. This is a factory bumblebee stripe from what I see. The chrome doesn't look too bad, but then again, I'm going to go through the whole thing. We're going to strip it down, send it to the body shop, get it Alpine white, and in the meantime, we'll build the engine, the transmission, look at the differential, and slowly put it together to a Kowalski number 2 in my shop. Yeah, you know, I'm not surprised that someone sends me a 70 Challenger, especially in the San Francisco area, that wants to build a Kowalski Challenger. And he's watching my videos and he knows I've built one. So he's brought it to me to build it exactly what I have. And of course, maybe it's his dream car also. But I've done a lot of Challengers in my life, and you know, this is one car I know inside out. So I'm going to do the best for him. So Dan, if you're watching, we're going to build your Kowalski number 2. It's been sitting in a garage for about 25 years in California, and of course it's dried up. I noticed a few things in it, and we had to vacuum the car earlier. Sure, it reminds me of my Challenger, let me tell you, starting from scratch again. But this car is more solid than my car. I don't see too much metal work on it, but there's a lot of pieces missing. There's a few pieces in the trunk, and I'm gonna have to put the RT badges back on. It's got a rally dash like all RT cars. It's an automatic with a console on the floor. It's got the original steering column, original black seats. Looks like a solid car. It's got a few pieces in the back seat. It's got parts in the trunk. And, you know, we brought it in, and here it is. Nico, what do you think of this car?
I think it has a lot of potential.
It sure does.
Well, you made me into a Mopar guy, so anytime I see a 70, 71 Challenger, I get so excited over these.
So, look at the way this car came in. Take a good look, and then look at it when it comes back when it's done, okay? You're gonna see it. Look, it's got no headlights, it's got black eyes. It's got the bumper guards that was option equipment on a Challenger. And of course, the Kowalski Challenger in the original film, 1971, with Barry Newman, they had them on the car. So in this case, we don't have to look for them, they're here. We gotta get some badges, 440 Magnum. Oh, it's gonna be a pretty interesting project. Oh yeah, I can't wait to get started on it. But the question is, now let's push into the body shop and get it painted white. My clients send me pictures of the car, emailed me pictures of the car, but you know what? Sometimes you can't make an estimate over pictures. You know, you need the car on hands and look at it, what it needs, what's missing, what needs repaired, what needs to be ordered, how far you want to go with it, what is the budget. This all depends on the, when we really tear it apart, take a good look, see what we need, and how far a customer wants to go. But you know, a lot of these cars, you know, sometimes you can see it's a full garage. You think you're busy working on every car at the same time. It's not true. You might have a lot of cars in the shop, like you see right here, but sometimes you're waiting for a piece, and it might come in 2-3 weeks. So the car will sit for 2-3 weeks while I'm working on another car. So while I'm working on that car, waiting for parts on this car and another car, so I could be working on a third car. So that's why I take a few cars and hold them at the same time. Because while I'm working on every one, parts waiting here, parts waiting there, it only makes sense to have a few cars in the shop while you're working on it. And that is the reason why I took on a few jobs. So there you guys have it. We have a few cars here. I'm building engines. I've got a few engines to put on the dyno. I don't have all the pieces, so I stand by and wait. So while I'm waiting, I'll take another project. I'm not surprised that someone sent me a car, 1970 Challenger turned into Kowalski. You know, a lot of people talk to me about Kowalski Challengers, and I've seen pictures from a lot of viewers around the world having Kowalski Challengers. Of course, I did my car Kowalski special. Here's another one. And if another one comes in the future to turn into Kowalski, I'll be more than glad to do it. And after all, if you do a few of them, they're gonna call me the Kowalski man. And you guys, if you look down below the video, we have a whole bunch of merchandise that you guys can buy. So whatever you like, buy it, love it, wear it, and enjoy it. And help spread the word of Nick's Garage. And if you have some time, check out our Patreon page. We have extra content and you guys can watch it and take it from there. And we'll see you next time.